You practice every day, you watch videos and you read books, you even try to speak sometimes. But when the real moment comes, your mind goes blank. Words disappear, confidence drops, and suddenly, you feel like you learned nothing. So here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not that you're not practicing, it's that your practice is not training your brain the right way. And today, I'm going to show you why all your effort feels useless, and what you must change if you actually want to speak English naturally. And before we go deeper, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from, and what time is it in your city right now? The practice illusion. You have been told your whole life that practice makes perfect, and because of that idea, you keep showing up every day believing you are doing the right thing. Believing that time alone will fix everything. Believing that if you just continue watching, reading, and repeating, one day it will all suddenly click and your English will become smooth and natural without effort. But here is the truth that most people never realize. Practice does not automatically lead to improvement. Practice only repeats whatever you are already doing. And if what you are doing is not building the right skill, then all your practice is doing is making you better at staying the same. Right now, without even noticing it, you are stuck inside what I call the practice illusion, a place where your brain feels like it is improving, but in reality, nothing meaningful is changing, a place where you feel productive, but you are not actually moving forward. You open a video, you listen carefully, and you understand most of it, maybe even all of it, and in that moment you feel satisfied, you feel smart, you feel like you are getting better, and your brain rewards you with comfort because understanding feels like success. But understanding is not speaking. Understanding is passive. Speaking is active. And these are two completely different processes inside your brain. When you understand something, your brain is simply recognizing patterns. It is matching sounds to meaning. It is following along. And this requires far less effort than actually creating language from nothing. When you speak, your brain must search, build, connect, and produce words in real time. And this is where real fluency is built, not in recognition, but in creation. The problem is that most of your practice is built around recognition. You watch English content, you read English text, you listen to conversations, and you become very good at understanding what other people say, but you are not training your brain to respond. You are not training your brain to generate language on its own. It is like sitting in a car every day as a passenger and expecting that one day you will magically know how to drive. You know the road, you know the turns, you know what it looks like. But the moment you sit in the driver's seat, everything feels unfamiliar, everything feels difficult, and your confidence disappears. That is exactly what is happening with your English. You are always in the passenger seat. You are observing, not acting. And because of that, your brain never builds the pathways required for real communication. Another reason this illusion is so powerful is because it feels safe. There is no pressure when you are just watching or reading. There is no risk of making mistakes. There is no fear of being judged. Everything is controlled, comfortable, predictable, and your brain loves this environment because it does not have to struggle. But growth never happens in comfort. Growth happens when your brain is forced to work harder than it wants to, when it is pushed slightly beyond what feels easy, when it has to search for words and build sentences under pressure. Right now, your practice is not challenging your brain in the right way. It is keeping you comfortable. And comfort creates the illusion of progress. You finish a video and think, I understood everything, I am improving. You read a paragraph and think, this is easy now, I am getting better. But then someone asks you a simple question in English, and suddenly your mind slows down, your thoughts become unclear, and you struggle to respond. That moment is not failure. That moment is reality. It shows you the gap between what you recognize and what you can actually produce. And until your practice starts focusing on production instead of just recognition, that gap will remain exactly where it is. This is why so many learners spend months, even years, practicing every single day without seeing real results, because they are repeating the same comfortable activities again and again, expecting a different outcome. They are busy, but not effective. They are consistent, but not improving. And the most dangerous part is that they don't realize it. They think they need more time. They think they need more vocabulary. They think they need better grammar. But the real problem is not how much they practice. It is how they practice. Until that changes, nothing else will. And this is the moment where you need to become aware of your own learning, to stop blindly repeating what feels good, and start questioning whether your practice is actually building the skill you want. Because once you see the illusion clearly, once you understand that feeling busy is not the same as making progress, you gain the power to change everything. And from this point forward, the goal is no longer to just practice more. The goal is to practice in a way that forces your brain to grow. Your brain is protecting you, and that's why you're stuck. Now that you understand the illusion, we need to go deeper, because the real problem is not just what you practice. It's how your brain reacts to practice. Your brain is not designed to make you fluent. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. And in your brain's language, safe means easy, predictable, and familiar. Anything that feels uncertain, slow, or uncomfortable, your brain tries to avoid it. And this is exactly what is happening when you try to speak English. The moment you open your mouth, something changes. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your thoughts become scattered. You start searching for the right words. And suddenly, your brain sends a signal. This is uncomfortable. Stop. So what do? You go back to what feels easy. You watch another video. You read another page. You listen to another podcast. And again, you feel like you're learning. But in reality, you are escaping. Escaping from the one thing that actually builds fluency: speaking. This is not your fault. This is your brain doing its job. Your brain is trying to protect your identity. Because when you speak a new language, you don't sound like yourself. You sound slower. You make mistakes. You feel exposed. And your brain interprets that as danger. Not physical danger, but social danger. Fear of judgment. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of being seen as not good enough. So your brain creates resistance. It delays you. It distracts you. It convinces you that you are not ready yet. It tells you, learn a little more first. Improve your vocabulary first. Fix your grammar first. And you believe it, because it sounds logical, but it is a trap. Because that perfect moment where you feel fully ready, it never comes. You can learn thousands of words. You can understand complex grammar. But if your brain is not trained to handle discomfort, you will still freeze when you try to speak. Because the real problem is not your English. The real problem is your reaction to pressure. Think about this carefully. When you are alone, you can form sentences. Slowly, maybe imperfectly, but you can. But when someone is listening, everything changes. Why? Because now there is pressure, and your brain shifts from learning mode to protection mode. In protection mode, your brain stops taking risks. It avoids mistakes. It tries to stay silent. And silence feels safer than speaking wrong. This is why you hesitate. This is why you overthink. This is why you feel blocked. Not because you don't know enough, but because your brain is trying to protect you from discomfort. And here is the truth that changes everything. Fluency is not built by avoiding discomfort. Fluency is built by training your brain to stay calm inside discomfort. You must teach your brain that speaking imperfect English is not dangerous. You must prove to your brain, again and again, that nothing bad happens when you make mistakes, that people don't attack you, that the world does not collapse, that communication still happens. But right now, you are doing the opposite. Every time you avoid speaking, every time you stay silent, every time you go back to passive learning instead of active use, you are reinforcing the fear. You are teaching your brain that speaking is something to avoid. And the more you avoid it, the stronger that fear becomes. This is why time alone does not fix your problem. You can spend years learning, but if your brain is still afraid to express, nothing changes. So the real shift begins here. You stop trying to feel comfortable, and you start accepting discomfort as part of the process. You stop waiting to feel ready, and you start speaking even when you feel unprepared, because readiness does not come before action. Readiness comes from action, and every time you push through that resistance, every time you speak despite the hesitation, every time you allow yourself to be imperfect, you are rewiring your brain. You are teaching it a new pattern, a new belief, that speaking is safe, that mistakes are normal, that communication matters more than perfection. And slowly, that fear begins to lose its power. Your pauses become shorter, your thoughts become clearer, your confidence becomes real, not forced. Because now, you are no longer controlled by your brain's need for comfort. You are training your brain to handle reality, and that is the moment where real progress begins. Because from here, you are no longer just practicing English. You are transforming the way your mind responds to it. You're training the wrong system, and that's why nothing changes. Now we go even deeper, because what you are about to understand will completely change how you see learning English. Up to this point, you believe that improvement comes from collecting more knowledge, more words, more grammar, more rules. But here is the truth most people never realize. Your brain does not become fluent by storing information. Your brain becomes fluent by building systems. And right now, you are training the wrong system. Let me explain this clearly. There are two completely different systems inside your brain when it comes to language. The first system is your knowledge system. This is where vocabulary lives. This is where grammar rules live. This is where everything you know about English is stored. This system is slow. It analyzes, it checks. It thinks step by step. This is the system you use when you are studying, when you are doing exercises, when you are trying to be correct. And then there is the second system, your speaking system. This system is fast, automatic, instant. It does not think about rules. It does not translate. It does not analyze. It simply produces language in real time. This is the system native speakers use, and this is the system you are not training. Right now, almost all your practice is strengthening your knowledge system. You learn new words. You memorize structures. You understand explanations, and your knowledge system becomes stronger and stronger. But your speaking system remains weak, untrained, slow. So when the moment comes to speak, your brain tries to use the only system it has developed, the slow one. It starts searching for rules. It starts checking grammar. It starts translating word by word. And everything breaks. Your sentences become slow. Your thoughts become blocked. Your confidence disappears. Because you are trying to use a system that was never designed for real-time communication. Imagine this. It's like trying to play a fast game using instructions instead of instinct. Instead of moving naturally, you are thinking about every step, where to go, what to press, what is correct. And by the time you decide, the moment is already gone. That is exactly what is happening when you try to speak English. You are thinking too much because your brain has been trained to think, not to respond. And the more you rely on this thinking system, the worse it becomes. Because fluency is not built by thinking faster. Fluency is built by reducing the need to think. This is why even after months of learning, you still feel slow. Because speed does not come from knowledge. Speed comes from automation. And automation only happens through repetition of real use, not passive exposure, not silent understanding, but active creation. You must force your brain to build direct connections between ideas and English, without translation, without delay. Right now, when you want to say something, your brain takes a long route. Idea to native language, to translation, to English to speech. This process is heavy, slow, unstable, and under pressure, it collapses. But fluent speakers use a completely different route. Idea to English to speech, direct, simple, fast, and that direct path is not created by studying more. It is created by using English as a tool, not as a subject. This is where everything changes, because now you begin to understand why your current practice is not working. You are feeding your brain information, but you are not building connections. You are learning about English, but you are not living in English. And until your practice shifts from knowledge to usage, from thinking to responding, from analyzing to expressing, nothing will truly change. Another hidden problem is this: you are addicted to correctness. You want every sentence to be perfect. You want every word to be right. And because of that, you slow yourself down even more. Your brain keeps checking. Is this correct? Is this the right tense? Is this how natives say it? And while your brain is busy checking, you stop speaking. But real communication does not work like this. Even native speakers make mistakes. Even they pause, adjust, correct themselves. Fluency is not perfection. Fluency is flow. The ability to keep going even when it's not perfect. And right now, your practice is teaching you to stop when things are not perfect, instead of continuing. Instead of adapting. Instead of expressing your idea in any possible way. So your speaking system never develops flexibility. And without flexibility, there is no fluency. This is why you must change your focus completely. From now on, your goal is not to know more. Your goal is to respond faster, to express ideas more freely, to build sentences even if they are not perfect, to keep speaking even when your brain hesitates. Because every time you do that, you are strengthening the right system, the fast system, the real system, the system that actually creates fluency. At first, it will feel messy. Your sentences will be simple, your grammar will break, you will repeat words. But something powerful is happening beneath that imperfection. Your brain is learning to move without thinking, to connect ideas directly to English, to trust the process instead of controlling it. And over time, that mess becomes clarity. That hesitation becomes speed. That fear becomes confidence. Because now, you are no longer training your brain to understand English. You are training your brain to use English. And that is the exact point, where real transformation begins. The hidden barrier. Translation is destroying your fluency. Now we reach the core problem, the one that silently controls everything you do in English, the one that feels normal but is actually holding you back more than anything else. Translation. Most learners never question it. It feels natural. You have been thinking in your own language your entire life, so when you try to speak English, your brain automatically follows the same pattern. You form a thought in your native language. Then you try to convert it, word by word, into English. And in that moment, everything slows down. Your brain starts searching. It looks for exact words. It checks grammar. It tries to match structures between two completely different systems. And the more you try to make it perfect, the heavier it becomes. This is why you feel stuck. Not because you don't know English, but because you are carrying an extra step that should not exist. Translation is like trying to run while dragging a weight behind you. No matter how strong you become, that weight will always slow you down. And under pressure, you stop moving completely. Think about what happens when someone asks you a simple question in English. Sure is, before you even open your mouth, your brain starts working in your native language. What do I want to say? You build the idea there first. Then you try to convert it. But language is not mathematics. It is not one-to-one. One sentence in your language does not always match one sentence in English. So your brain gets confused. It searches for equivalents that don't exist. It tries to force structures that don't fit. And this creates hesitation, breaks your flow, kills your confidence. This is why sometimes you know all the words, but still cannot form the sentence, because you are building it in the wrong place. Fluent speakers don't translate. They don't convert thoughts. They don't move between two languages. They live inside one system when they speak, and that system is English. Now, this does not mean they forgot their native language. It means that when they are speaking English, their brain switches fully into that mode. Ideas are formed directly in English, not perfectly at first, not beautifully at first, but directly. And that direct connection is what creates speed, clarity, flow. So the real question is not, how can I learn more English? The real question is, how can I stop translating? And the answer is simple, but uncomfortable. You must stop giving your brain time to translate. Right now, you pause too much. You wait. You search for perfect sentences. You give your brain space to go back to your native language. And every time you do that, you strengthen the habit of translation. Instead, you must interrupt this pattern. You must respond faster, even if your sentence is simple. Even if it feels incomplete, even if it is not perfect, because speed breaks translation. When you force your brain to respond quickly, it does not have time to translate. It is forced to build directly in English. At first, this will feel strange. You will use very basic words. Your sentences will be short. Sometimes you will repeat the same structures again and again. That is normal, because your brain is learning a new way of thinking, not a new set of words, but a new process, a new system. And this system takes time to build. But every time you choose speed over perfection, you weaken translation. And every time you weaken translation, you strengthen direct thinking. Another powerful method is this. Start thinking in English even when you are alone. When you wake up, describe your morning in English. When you walk outside, name what you see. When you feel something, express it in simple English sentences. Don't translate. Don't go back to your native language. Stay inside English, even if it feels limited, because limitation is part of growth. Right now, your brain is used to expressing complex ideas in your own language, but in English, you must start simple. You must accept that you cannot say everything at once. You must reduce your ideas, shape them into what you can express. And this is how real fluency is built, not by expanding endlessly, but by working deeply with what you already have. Over time, your brain adapts. Your vocabulary becomes more accessible. Your sentences become more natural. And most importantly, your thinking becomes faster, because now there is no translation in the middle. Just idea and expression. Another thing you must understand is this. Translation creates fear, because when you translate, you feel like there is always a correct version you must find. You feel pressure to match something perfectly, and that pressure makes you hesitate. But when you think directly in English, you focus on meaning, not perfection. You focus on communicating, not converting. And that freedom changes everything. You become more relaxed, more flexible, more willing to speak. And fluency begins to grow naturally from that state. This is why some people with limited vocabulary can speak confidently, while others with advanced knowledge remain silent. Because confidence does not come from knowing more. Confidence comes from removing barriers, and translation is the biggest barrier of all. So from this moment, start becoming aware of your thinking. Notice when your brain switches to your native language. Notice when you pause to translate. And gently bring yourself back to English. Not forcefully, not with frustration, but with intention. Because every small moment of direct thinking is a step toward real fluency. And slowly, that new way of thinking becomes natural. That struggle becomes ease. That hesitation becomes flow. Until one day, you don't even realize it anymore. You are not translating, you are not searching, you are simply speaking. And that is the moment when English stops being something you learn and becomes something you live. Why you feel stuck. even after so much practice. At this point, you have already done more than most people. You have spent time. You have shown consistency. You have stayed committed when others quit. And yet, there is this quiet frustration inside you, because despite all that effort, your level feels almost the same. You can understand more than before. You can recognize more words than before. You feel slightly more familiar with the language, but when it comes to speaking, nothing has truly transformed. And this is where many people start doubting themselves. They begin to think, maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe English is just not for me. Maybe I started too late. But the truth is much simpler and much more important. You are not stuck because you are incapable. You are stuck because your progress has been invisible. Let me explain what that means. Not all improvement shows itself immediately. There are two types of progress. The first one is visible progress. This is when you clearly see change. You learn a new word. You understand a new sentence. You recognize something you didn't before. This kind of progress feels good. It gives you proof. It gives you motivation. But there is another type of progress, hidden progress. This is when your brain is slowly building connections beneath the surface, when it is reorganizing information, when it is trying to create pathways between ideas and expression. And this process is slow, silent, and often frustrating, because you cannot see it, you cannot measure it, you cannot feel it immediately. So your brain assumes nothing is happening, and that belief becomes dangerous, because once you believe that nothing is working, you lose patience. You start jumping from one method to another. You change strategies every few weeks. You look for shortcuts. You search for the perfect system, but every time you restart, you break the process. Because deep learning requires time, consistency, in the right direction, not constant change. This is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck for years. Not because they don't work hard, but because they never stay long enough in one effective system. Another reason you feel stuck is repetition without awareness. You are doing the same activities every day, watching, listening, reading, but you are not actively thinking about what you are doing. Your brain is on autopilot. It recognizes patterns, but it does not challenge itself. And without challenge, your brain stops growing. Imagine lifting the same light weight every day at the gym. At first, it feels difficult, then it becomes easy, and after that, it does nothing. Your muscles stop growing because there is no new demand. The same thing is happening with your English. Your practice has become too easy, too predictable, too comfortable, and your brain has adapted to it. So now, even though you are practicing, you are no longer improving, because improvement only happens when your brain is slightly uncomfortable, when it has to stretch, when it has to reach beyond what it already knows. But you avoid that feeling. You stay inside what feels familiar, and that creates the illusion of effort without real progress. Another deeper reason behind feeling stuck is comparison. You look at others, people who speak faster, people who sound more natural, people who seem confident, and you begin to measure your journey against theirs. But what you don't see is their process. You don't see their struggles. You don't see how long they stayed in discomfort. You only see the result, and that creates pressure. Pressure makes you overthink. Overthinking slows you down, and suddenly, even what you already know becomes harder to use. This is why sometimes you perform worse than your actual level. Not because you forgot, but because you are thinking too much about how you should sound. And there is one more hidden reason that keeps you stuck. You are trying to improve everything at once. Vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, fluency, confidence. You want all of it at the same time. But your brain does not work like that. It needs focus. It needs direction. When you try to fix everything, You end up improving nothing deeply. Your attention is scattered, your practice becomes unfocused, and your results stay weak. Real progress happens when you simplify your goal, when you focus on one core skill at a time, and for you, that core skill is speaking. Not perfect speaking, not advanced speaking, just consistent, real, imperfect speaking. Because speaking is the bridge between everything else. Vocabulary becomes useful when you use it. Grammar becomes natural when you apply it. Confidence grows when you experience success in real communication. But if you keep everything inside your mind, none of it becomes real. This is why you must shift your mindset completely. Instead of asking, "Why am I not improving?" start asking, "Am I practicing in a way that forces growth?" Because if your practice is comfortable, if it feels easy, if it does not challenge you, then it is not building fluency. It is maintaining your current level, and maintaining is not progress. Another powerful shift is this. Stop measuring progress by how perfect you sound. Start measuring progress by how often you express, how many times you try, how many ideas you turn into sentences, how many moments you choose to speak instead of staying silent. Because fluency is not built in big breakthroughs. It is built in small, repeated actions. Moments where you push yourself slightly beyond comfort. Moments where you accept imperfection and continue anyway. Moments where you train your brain to respond, not retreat. And slowly, those small moments accumulate. They build something invisible at first, but powerful over time. Your brain becomes faster. Your hesitation becomes shorter. Your fear becomes weaker. Until one day, you notice something different. You respond without thinking too much. You form sentences more naturally. You feel less pressure. And that is when you realize you were never truly stuck. You were just in the middle of the process, a process that requires patience, consistency, and the courage to stay uncomfortable long enough for growth to happen. So if you feel stuck right now, don't stop. Don't change everything. Don't doubt yourself. Just adjust your direction. Make your practice more active, more challenging, more focused on real use. And trust that even when you don't see immediate results, your brain is still building something beneath the surface, something that will eventually show itself. Not as knowledge, but as real, natural, confident English. The real way to practice, the system that actually builds fluency. Now everything comes together, because up to this point, you have understood the problem. You have seen the illusion. You have recognized your brain's resistance. You have discovered the gap between knowledge and real speaking. You have seen how translation slows you down. You have realized why you feel stuck even after so much effort. But understanding alone does not change your reality. Action does. And not just any action, the right kind of action. Because if you continue practicing the same way, nothing will change. So now I am going to show you the system. The exact shift that turns practice into real fluency. Not theory, not motivation, but a practical way to train your brain every single day. And this is where most people get it wrong. They believe they need more time. They believe they need hours of study. They believe they need complex routines. But in reality, you don't need more time. You need better training. Because fluency is not built by how long you practice. It is built by how your brain works during practice. So from this moment, your goal is simple. Train your brain to produce English, not just understand it. And to do that, you must change the structure of your practice completely. The first shift is this. You must move from passive input to active output. Right now, most of your time is spent receiving English, listening, reading, watching. And while input is important, it cannot create fluency on its own, because fluency lives in expression. So from now on, every time you take in English, you must force something out of it. If you watch a video, Pause and explain it in your own words. If you read something, close it and summarize what you understood. If you learn a word, immediately use it in a sentence. This is called active recall, and it changes everything. Because instead of your brain recognizing information, it is forced to create it. At first, you will struggle. You will forget. You will pause. Good. That is exactly what should happen. Because struggle is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that your brain is working. The second shift is this. You must start speaking, even when no one is around. Most people wait for a partner. They wait for a teacher. They wait for the right moment to speak. And because of that, they never build consistency. But your brain does not care who you are speaking to. It only cares that you are speaking. So you must remove the dependency. You must become your own speaking partner. Talk to yourself. Describe what you are doing. Explain your thoughts. Tell stories about your day. Ask yourself questions and answer them. This may feel strange at first, unnatural, even uncomfortable, but remember, your brain is not used to this. You are building a new habit, and habits always feel unnatural in the beginning. But over time, this becomes your most powerful tool, because now you can practice anytime, anywhere, without waiting for anyone. The third shift is this. You must reduce your thinking time. Right now, you pause too much. You wait to build perfect sentences. You search for the right words. And in that waiting, your brain goes back to translation. So instead, you must train speed. Not fast speaking, but fast thinking. Give yourself less time. Force quick responses, even if they are simple, even if they are not perfect, because speed breaks overthinking. Speed blocks translation. Speed builds direct connection. And that direct connection is the foundation of fluency. The fourth shift is this. You must accept imperfect English. This is where many people fail. They know what to do, but they refuse to do it imperfectly. They want to sound correct. They want to sound natural. They want to sound like a native speaker. But that expectation stops them from speaking at all, because perfection creates pressure, and pressure creates hesitation. So you must change your standard. Your goal is not perfect English. Your goal is continuous English. Keep speaking. Keep expressing. Keep building sentences, even if they are broken, because broken English that moves forward is more powerful than perfect English that never comes out. The fifth shift is this. You must repeat real situations, not random sentences, not isolated words, but real-life communication. Imagine situations: ordering food, introducing yourself, explaining a problem, talking about your plans, and practice these situations again and again. Not memorizing, but recreating, each time slightly different, each time more natural, because fluency is not knowing everything. It is handling common situations smoothly, and when you train like this, your brain builds familiarity, confidence grows, and speaking becomes easier. The sixth shift is this. You must stay consistent, even when you don't feel progress. This is the hardest part, because there will be days where you feel stuck, days where your mind feels slow, days where your sentences don't come out the way you want, and in those moments, you will feel like nothing is working. But this is where most people quit, and this is why most people never become fluent, because they stop in the middle of the process. They stop before their brain fully adapts. You must continue, even when it feels pointless, even when it feels repetitive, even when it feels slow, because deep learning takes time. Your brain is not just learning words. It is rewiring itself, building new pathways, creating new patterns, and that process cannot be rushed, but it can be completed. If you stay consistent, the final shift is this. You must become a user, not a learner. This is the identity change that transforms everything. As long as you see yourself as someone who is learning English, you will stay in study mode. You will focus on correctness. You will hesitate to use it. But the moment you see yourself as someone who uses English, your behavior changes. You start expressing more. You start taking risks. You start communicating instead of analyzing. And slowly, English becomes part of your daily thinking. Not something separate, not something you visit, but something you live inside. And this is the ultimate goal. Not to know English, but to use English naturally. So from today, don't ask yourself, what should I learn next? Ask yourself, how can I use what I already know? Because you already know enough to start, enough to speak, enough to improve. You just need to activate it, to bring it out of your mind, into real use. And if you follow this system, not perfectly, but consistently, something will begin to change. Your hesitation will decrease. Your thinking will speed up. Your sentences will flow more naturally. And one day, you will speak. Without overthinking, without translating, without fear. Not because you learned more, but because you trained your brain the right way, and that is the moment where practice finally starts working. The identity shift, when you stop learning English and start living it, at this point, everything you needed to understand is already clear. You know why your practice wasn't working. You understand how your brain was slowing you down. You have seen the gap between knowledge and real speaking. You have learned what must change. But there is one final barrier, and this is the deepest one. It is not about methods. It is not about techniques. It is not even about practice anymore. It is about who you believe you are. Because as long as you see yourself as someone who is trying to learn English, you will always behave like a learner. Careful, slow, afraid of mistakes, waiting to feel ready. And that identity quietly controls every action you take. You hesitate before speaking. You overthink simple sentences. You judge yourself constantly. You measure every word you say. And without realizing it, you stay stuck. Not because you don't know what to do, but because your identity is holding you back. So the real transformation begins here. You stop being a learner, and you become a user. This is not a small shift. This changes everything. Because a learner asks, is this correct? A user asks, did I communicate my idea? A learner waits for the perfect moment. A user speaks in the imperfect moment. A learner fears mistakes. A user expects them. A learner focuses on rules. A user focuses on meaning. And this difference is what separates people who stay stuck from people who become fluent. Right now, your biggest limitation is not your English. It is your hesitation to use it freely. Because somewhere inside you, there is a belief. I am not ready yet. And this belief feels true. It feels logical. It feels safe. But it is also the reason you are not improving. Because readiness does not come before action. Readiness is created by action. Every time you speak, you become more ready. Every time you express, you become more capable. Every time you allow yourself to be imperfect, you move one step closer to fluency. But if you keep waiting, if you keep preparing, if you keep telling yourself, just a little more, then I'll start, you will stay exactly where you are. This is why you must break that pattern. You must start seeing English not as something you study, but as something you live. You must bring it into your daily life, not in big ways, but in small, consistent moments. When you wake up, think your first thought in English. When you walk, describe what you see. When you feel something, express it in simple English sentences. When you plan your day, do it in English. Not perfectly, not completely, but intentionally. Because fluency is not built in classrooms. It is built in moments. Moments where your brain chooses English again and again until it becomes natural, and at first, it will feel forced. Your sentences will be simple. Your thoughts will be limited. You will feel like you are going backward, but you are not. You are rebuilding your thinking process. You are teaching your brain a new way to operate, and that takes time. Another powerful shift happens when you stop fearing judgment, because one of the biggest reasons you don't speak freely is the fear of how you sound. You imagine people noticing your mistakes. You imagine them judging you. You imagine yourself looking weak or unprepared, and because of that, you hold back. You speak less. You stay silent. But here is the reality. Most people are not judging you. Most people are focused on themselves. And even if someone notices your mistakes, it does not matter, because communication is not about perfection. It is about connection. If someone understands your idea, you have succeeded. Everything else is secondary. And the more you accept this, the more freedom you gain. Freedom to speak, freedom to try, freedom to improve. Because now, you are no longer protecting your image. You are building your ability. And that shift removes a huge weight from your mind. Another deep transformation happens when you stop comparing yourself to others. Because comparison creates pressure, and pressure destroys performance. You see someone speaking fluently, and you think, I should be like that. But you don't see their journey. You don't see how many mistakes they made, how many times they struggled, how long they stayed in discomfort. You only see the result, and when you compare your beginning to someone else's result, you feel behind, but you are not behind. You are just in a different stage, and the moment you accept your stage, you gain control over your progress. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You start focusing on your own improvement, step by step, moment by moment. Another important shift is this. You must redefine what success means. Right now, success for you is speaking perfectly, but that standard is too high, too heavy, too unrealistic in the early stages. So you must change it. Success is not perfect speaking. Success is speaking at all. Success is expressing your idea, even if it is simple. Success is continuing, even when it feels difficult, because every time you succeed at this level, you build momentum, and momentum creates confidence. Real confidence, not fake confidence, not motivation, but confidence built on action. And that kind of confidence cannot be taken away, because it comes from experience, from proof, from repetition, and slowly. Something inside you changes. You stop overthinking every sentence. You stop worrying about every mistake. You stop waiting for the perfect words. And instead, you start flowing, naturally, freely, imperfectly, but effectively. And that is fluency, not perfection. Not advanced vocabulary, not complex grammar, but the ability to express your thoughts without fear, without hesitation, without stopping. And this is where your journey transforms, because now English is no longer something outside you. It becomes part of you, part of your thinking, part of your expression, part of your daily life. You no longer practice English. You use it. You live it. And that is the final stage, the stage where learning disappears and communication takes over. So if you take one thing from this entire journey, let it be this. Stop waiting to become fluent before you start speaking. Start speaking, and fluency will come, not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. Because when you change your identity, when you change your behavior, when you change the way you use English, you change the result. And one day, without even realizing it, you will look back and see how far you have come. Not because you learned more than others, but because you used what you had better than before. And that is the moment where English stops being your struggle and becomes your strength. So now you finally see it clearly. It was never about how much you practiced. It was never about how many videos you watched. It was never about learning more and more. It was about how you were training your brain. You were understanding, but not expressing. You were learning, but not using. You were preparing, but not performing. And that is why nothing changed. But now, everything can change. Because you don't need a new course. You don't need more time. You don't need perfect grammar. You just need to start using English every single day. Speak, even when it feels uncomfortable. Think, even when it feels slow. Express, even when it's not perfect. Because that discomfort you feel, that is not failure. That is growth. That is your brain building something new. And if you stay consistent, if you keep showing up, if you keep choosing action over comfort, there will come a moment where you speak without overthinking, where you respond without translating, where English feels natural, not forced. And that moment will not come from learning more. It will come from finally using what you already know. So don't wait. Start today, start small, but start right. And if this changed the way you see your English journey, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who feels stuck just like you. And tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you will change in your practice starting today? I'll see you in the next one.